All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something that, honestly, it feels like an absolute game changer for modern anxiety. We're looking at a foundational Buddhist text. It's called AN 5.57, or the Abhiṇhapaccavekkhitabbaṭhāna Sutta. Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast. But seriously, the wisdom in this text is just profoundly transformative. You know, we live in a world that's constantly telling us to chase eternal youth, endless health, and, well, infinite accumulation. But this ancient roadmap, it asks us to do the exact opposite. It's asking us to look directly at the things that terrify us the most, not to make us miserable, but to actually, literally set us completely free. So here's how we're going to break this down today. First, we'll hit the 5 daily reflections, then we'll check out the antidotes to vanity, move right into the universal reality, and finally wrap up with the spiritual path. All right, starting us off with section 1, the 5 daily reflections. Okay, let's dive into this. Think for a second about how much energy our modern society spends just avoiding the harsh realities of human existence. I mean, we've got literal billion-dollar industries entirely dedicated to hiding the fact that we age, that we get sick, and that we're mortal. But the Buddha gives advice here that completely flips our modern instincts upside down. He poses this totally counterintuitive question. Why should we willingly dwell on aging, sickness, and death? Why on earth would we lean into the very things we spend our entire lives running away from? Well, the text gives us 5 specific subjects that the Buddha says everyone, whether you're a woman, a man, a layperson, or a renunciate, should review often. And notice the inclusivity there, right? This isn't just for monks meditating on a mountain, it's for all of us. So here's the core roadmap. Number 1, I am liable to grow old. Number 2, I am liable to get sick. Number 3, I am liable to die. Number 4, I must be separated from all I hold dear. And number 5, I am the owner and heir of my deeds. These reflections, they just lay down a crystal clear, completely unvarnished baseline of reality. Now, that 5th point, it is absolutely critical. It really needs its own spotlight. The text explicitly defines our relationship to our actions, or our deeds. It says, and I quote, I am the owner of my deeds and heir to my deeds. Deeds are my womb, my relative, and my refuge. I shall be the heir of whatever deeds I do, whether good or bad. This is, quite frankly, the ultimate framing of personal responsibility. Think about it. You can lose your youth, your health, your life, even your loved ones. But the one thing you are permanently tethered to, the ethical weight of your own actions. Moving right along to section 2, the antidotes to vanity. Now, what's really interesting about this is, what is the actual psychological advantage of dwelling on such seemingly morbid thoughts? Like, why intentionally bring this heavy reality to mind every single day? Well, the text presents these reflections not as punishments, but as actual cures. By juxtaposing the hard truth of aging directly against our illusions, it acts as a literal antidote. The text explains that people who are intoxicated with the vanity of youth, they tend to do bad things by way of body, speech, and mind. But by regularly reviewing I am liable to grow old, that toxic intoxication, that vanity of youth, is entirely given up, or at the very least, significantly reduced. And, you know, the exact same powerful logic applies to our attachments. When we review, I must be parted and separated from all I hold dear and beloved, it directly targets our desire and lust. Confronting this inevitable separation, it isn't meant to cause despair. It's actually meant to actively destroy the harmful clinging that traps us in these endless cycles of suffering. When we finally realize we can't hold on to anything forever, that frantic, grasping lust for the things we love, it begins to dissolve into a much deeper, far more peaceful appreciation. So when we zoom out and look at the whole picture, we really see the repetitive, genius logic of the sutta. Look at how beautifully structured this is. Reviewing aging destroys the vanity of youth. Reviewing sickness destroys the vanity of health. Death destroys the vanity of life. Separation destroys lust, and reviewing our deeds destroys bad conduct directly. And what's the ultimate behavioral result of all these psychological cures? It just stops us from doing bad things. It realigns our physical actions, our speech, and our thoughts with reality. It's basically a perfect system of ethical purification through radical acceptance. Which brings us to section 3, the universal reality. Now, at this point in the source material, there is a massive narrative pivot. I mean, the perspective shifts drastically from the isolated individual to the vast interconnected collective. Because let's be real, the reflections we just talked about, they could easily make someone feel super isolated or like they're uniquely cursed. But the text gracefully guides us to completely reframe our personal fears into a universal connection. We shift away from that suffocating anxiety of the I and move straight into the boundless compassion of recognizing all sentient beings. The noble disciple reflects, and I really want to read this slowly because it is just so profound. It's not just me who is liable to grow old, not being exempt from old age. For all sentient beings grow old according to their nature, as long as they come and go, pass away, and are reborn. Wow. Suddenly your personal tragedy is recognized as the universal condition. You're no longer alone in your aging, your sickness, or your mortality. You share this exact fundamental nature with everything that lives. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world application of this newfound empathy. The text points out that ordinary people often feel disgusted when they see creatures suffering from old age, sickness, and death. You know how it is, we look away, we judge, we push it away out of our own fear. But the practitioner realizes, if I were to be disgusted with creatures whose nature is such, it would not be appropriate for me, since my life is just the same. Realizing our shared vulnerability entirely destroys that ego-driven disgust and replaces it with this profound sense of solidarity. All right, bringing it home with section 4, the spiritual path. So we've broken down our vanities, and we've connected our personal suffering to the universal human condition. What actually happens next? What's the culmination of integrating these super difficult subjects into a daily practice? Well, the text maps out a very actionable mechanism in 4 steps. Step 1, you review the subjects often. Step 2, through this continuous reflection, the spiritual path is literally born in you. It's an act of creation. Step 3, you cultivate, develop, and make much of this path. And step 4, by doing all of this, you give up the mental fetters and permanently eliminate your deep-seated underlying tendencies. So the reflection isn't just from passive thought exercise, it's the actual engine that drives enlightenment. This leads us right to the philosophical climax of the explainer, captured in this absolutely beautiful poetic verse from the end of the text. It says, "Living in such a way, I understood the truth without attachments. I mastered all vanities, of health, of youth, and even of life, seeing renunciation as sanctuary." Notice that word right there, sanctuary. By accepting the harsh realities of existence and just letting go of that desperate clinging to temporary things, the practitioner doesn't find depression, right? They find an unshakable, totally invincible sanctuary. So, the crucial point is this. The verse continues, saying, "Zeal sprang up in me as I looked to extinguishment. Now I'm unable to indulge in sensual pleasures. There's no turning back. I'm committed to the spiritual life." By facing death, sickness, and aging head-on, an incredible, vibrant zeal springs up. It culminates in a complete inability to find satisfaction in those fleeting sensual pleasures, and instead fosters an unwavering, joyous commitment to ultimate spiritual liberation. Which brings us to the core paradox of this ancient text, and really the question I want to leave you with today. We spend so much time building these massive walls to keep out the thoughts of our own impermanence, but based on the rigorous, beautiful logic of Aṅguttara 5.57, could facing your darkest, inevitable realities actually be the ultimate path to complete psychological freedom? Something to think about. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating source material with me today, and keep questioning the way you view the world.